Has anything changed? Allura asked Chio, who was keeping watch at the window. No, the Ilithi confirmed, pulling back. They're still there, sometimes moving, but randomly. I don't sense anything else, at least not yet. Then that means we're in the clear for now, Nika shrugged, as she finished shaking her plasma rifle free of loose water, leaning it near the small fireplace that was only just now starting to catch on the larger pieces of firewood they'd fed it. Jack didn't have the energy to bother asking if putting the gun there was even remotely safe. Hey. Scifi pulled on his arm to get his attention. Brooding much? I don't brood, Jack grumbled, then rolled his eyes and chuckled as he spotted the Skritter's grin, having just proved her right. What's up, Scifi? You should probably wear this over your armor, Scifi shrugged, indicating the bundle in her arms. It's a little short, but about your size. It's the coat I found on the door hook with the note. Huh. Jack considered as he took the bundle in his arms. He had been cold for most of the day and the previous night after his clothes got torn to shreds during the fight with the Redeemer, and he couldn't even think about rummaging through the house they'd investigated after seeing what had happened to that poor family. But as the damp and wet firmly clung to him, he knew he needed to dry off and layer up. Unfurling the bundle, he saw that the brown leather duster was worn and weathered, almost like a testament to its previous owner's rugged lifestyle. The leather, which was probably once a deep, rich brown, had faded and cracked from long exposure to the elements, but was heavy and clearly still capable of providing protection against harsh weather. It had reinforced stitching along the seams and cuffs, and it flowed to almost halfway down his thighs as he put it on. Still a bit muddy, but it's about as luxurious as you're going to get around here, Scifi laughed. Pockets didn't have much either, some trail rations that I wouldn't trust. At least it's still better than that cringe black long coat you were wearing before. Oh, for God's sake, that coat was tactical. Jack rolled his eyes as the others chuckled under their breath. Thanks, Scifi, he told the Skritter sincerely, once they were done. You're welcome, the Skritter grinned. This ranger didn't have much else around here. Maybe this place was more of a bolt hole than their home. That would make sense, Chio agreed. Many rangers in the wilderness operate in a large area of territory, so they need reliable places to camp out. It's a shame we don't know more, but I think we know enough now. Allura nodded grimly from beside the fire, shaking up the water from her light armor and warming up her hands. We got it wrong when we thought we'd escaped that nightmare from the boat. Yeah, Nika nodded, rubbing the water out of her exposed bits of fur to pool on the dusty floor. Even if those weird lights weren't twinkling outside, the note matches what we encountered in the forest. Not to mention what Jack saw below decks, Scifi shuddered. Yeah, Jack growled at the memory. Either way, we need to agree on what we do now. How far away are we from the shrine? Allura asked Scifi. About 12 miles, give or take, the Skritter confirmed. Damn. Despite the setbacks, we made decent progress and we're more than halfway there. About 35 miles from the dock. Damn, that's pretty good, Nika admitted, and Jack had to agree. It didn't change the fact that they were exhausted from the hard day, but the fact that days on the Ringworld were longer than he was used to on Earth meant they had more daylight to take advantage of. That means our time frame is still viable, Allura noted. It is, Jack agreed. We've come so far, so we've got to go for it, right? At the very least get close enough to the shrine and see if we're able to realistically have a look around. Hell yeah, Scifi grinned. That's the spirit. Jack smiled despite himself, as the others also nodded their agreement to push on. The lingering terror and doubts were there bubbling under the surface. That hadn't changed. But he noticed that despite the shit, despite the risks, despite facing potential death, Scifi was right. He was getting used to this, perhaps even getting ever so slightly more comfortable, despite the short amount of time he'd spent here. For better or for worse. We should be clear about the parameters of the run, since we're getting closer to our destination, Chio proposed, and Allura nodded her agreement. Yeah, having assholes tried to kill us since last night is good at making us forget why the fuck we actually came here in the first place, Nika joked. But the client wanted us to find his mother at the shrine of Ethel she and her fellow Green Ones protected. That should be our primary objective. We ID the body, loot it for what the client wants, and bury it. If they have any records, we take them with us, since we're not sticking around any longer than we need to. We have a picture of the mother too, Allura added, as she indicated to Scifi to bring up the photo in question, showing a grey-feathered avian woman with a sharp beak and 4 eyes, dressed in brown robes. We should record everything we can when we get to the Shrine of Evil, but this is who we're looking for. Considering everything that's happened, we should hope for a dead body we can identify. If not, it's possible she was taken by the threat, which complicates things. I think we have enough evidence of what's going on that Mr. Johnson can come to his own conclusions, if nothing else, Jack stated, shuffling near to the fire and appreciating the warming flickers. We know that Mr. Johnson seems more focused on his mother and what she has, but officially we were tasked with a recon mission. It would suck to miss out on any bonuses, but when we discussed it back at the house, we agreed that the base pay was nothing to scoff at. Yeah, I'd rather max this shit out, especially after all we've been through, Scifi nodded, but I'll take whatever payday we can get. We will certainly get one, Allura nodded. We have enough information to sell should the client try to double-cross us, but since this is a sensitive matter for them, I think they'll be straighter than that. We're thinking 3 steps ahead right now, Cheer warned them. Our efforts should be on planning for the immediate objective and the threats we may need to deal with. Ammo check, Nika abruptly requested. Our edge against these monsters is our gear. The risen zone we faced only had primitive weaponry and beasts, and whatever was attacking us at the river didn't exactly like getting shot at. 2 expended batteries for my plasma rifle, which I still have with me, Jack reported, as well as whatever I have plugged in right now and 3 more spares. Nika and Scifi also reported their ammo count, being on much the same level as Jack, with both Chio and Allura good for their own abilities. Perhaps our proximity to Dante will allow for the batteries to recharge if their electrical abilities can work that way, Chio theorized. I know a few of the others back home charge their comlinks by being near him. Woof! Dante quietly barked in response. Heh, like a portable charger? Scifi grinned. Wanna try it out? She leaned down to the dog, who was wagging their tail in amusement as the Skritter tried in vain to balance one of her expended batteries on Dante's head. Let's just leave them next to Dante for now and we can check in a few hours. Allura snorted at the pair's shenanigans. Oh yeah, speaking of ammo. Nika spoke up with a smirk as she walked over to the collapsed bed and picked up the blunderbuss. Jack, you might as well take this. I already have a shotgun, though this one is more like a hunting rifle. Ah, Scifi joked, despite knowing she wouldn't be able to handle such a weapon. Sure, Jack nodded as he took the weapon, taking a closer look. How on earth do I load this thing? It's a break action, the Kizan told him, pointing out the seam which he pulled apart. He spotted a plasma battery within, though of a smaller size than the ones he had. Didn't find any ammo for it, and I don't recognize the battery type, though, so I wouldn't get too attached to it. Fair enough, Jack shrugged, bringing the weapon up and looking down the barrel. I guess we can always Google it at home, or perhaps I can pick up a better one when we get back. For now, though, I'll take it. What's a Google? Chio asked, before she quickly turned her head around to look through the window. We've got movement. How far? Allura asked, as she walked up to join her. Distant, and they're not in a hurry, the Alethi announced after a few moments. They're not for us. How many? Jack asked, activating his shades of scene, as he, Nika and Scifi joined them to take a look. Just a small patrol. About 10 of them, Chio replied, pointing with a finger. Yeah, I see them. He focused in with his shades of scene, while Scifi quickly connected to them and broadcast what he was seeing to the others. Too small to be Zorn, Nika noted. Pretty sure they look like some of the shapes from the forest, Scifi added. I agree, Jack whispered, as he focused on the lead one. He'd say it was about half his height and humanoid, with mismatched limbs and a bulbous, crooked head, though he couldn't make out many other details. Primitive weaponry, though. I think they're carrying spears. Those will match the wounds we found on the bodies of that family, Chio added. Either these beasts or others like them are the killers. Let them pass, Allura whispered. We need to rest, at least until the storm passes. They don't look like they're feeling the elements, Jack pointed out, and I don't think they're wearing any kind of clothing. No, Allura agreed, as the shapes disappeared out of sight. This place isn't guaranteed safety, Nika cautioned. Get whatever break you can, since we may need to run at any time. I think we've got about 7 hours of darkness, Scifi confirmed. But I reckon we should be ready to go before daylight. We don't want to hang around for too long. Maybe we could head out a few hours closer to the daytime. That may be too risky, Chio pointed out. Though trying to make as much distance in the quickest amount of time is ideal, we need to stay sharp. Besides, we don't have a guaranteed way back, so we may need to accept that we won't be in time for school and will be punished. Hidden in a cabin in the woods with monsters about? And that's what you're worried about? Jack asked with amusement, staring at the Alithi with raised eyebrows. The worst punishment for non-attendance is expulsion, Chio explained. And I prefer to graduate with a full education. It's what my parents and people expect of me. And there's so much for us to learn, Allura added. I don't want to throw that away. The maximum punishment will be unlikely if it's a few days, and we have a good reason, but the longer we miss out, the more likely they won't take us back. Plus, you're lacking in a lot of knowledge, Nika added, playfully poking Jack in the side. Yeah, you might be a total nerd like Chio, but you still need to catch up, Scifi grinned at the grumpy stare of Chio. But yeah, our friends are there and we probably shouldn't fuck it up for ourselves if we can help it. I'll never get this place, Jack snorted. Batshit insane galaxy full of chaos and killers, but God forbid we skip out on getting an education. Pretty much, Nika grinned. Just roll with it. How will we even get back? Jack asked. Would the river giants take us by another route, or do we take a raft? We found other settlements along the river confirmed by the river giants, Chio answered. We sail up them by the means at hand until we find one with a matrix connection, then charter a private shuttle. Such a thing would be expensive, but within the budget. Yeah, we need to finally get our own shuttle fixed, Scifi grinned. We can wake up later in the morning and ride it to school. I'm quite sure we still need to acquire a secure place to park it, Allura pointed out. The nearest place I can think of being where it currently is at home. Meh, just keep it hovering up in the air, no problem, the Scritter shrugged. Do you realise how much that would cost in power? Chio asked with a chuckle. Totally worth it, Scifi smirked. See anything? Nika asked Jack several hours later, as he kept watch from the cabin window. Nothing since last time, Jack admitted, with the group having spotted 2 more patrols of the smaller creatures since they settled in. I'd say they might not be that numerous, but that crap back of the forest had numbers behind it. And that was more than a small patrol, Nika whispered thoughtfully. What do you think? Jack asked the Kizzen. It's their objective, Nika realised. Whatever they want, it's got to be why they're apparently taking some people alive. On the boat, some of the river giants just disappeared, while others ran off straight into the woods. Yeah, and I remember seeing things too, Jack added. Yes, I did too, Nika admitted, shuddering as she clamped the old memory back down. Could that have been to lure us or scare us off? Possibly, Jack agreed. But for what purpose? And why capture some and kill others? We don't know, but that's what I'm getting at. The Kizzen smiled slyly. They came for us in force in the boat because they knew we were coming, and there was potentially people they'd want to capture, but out here... This place has already been picked clean. Jack sat up as it suddenly clicked for him. So why should they commit so many of their forces here? Exactly, Nika nodded. It's why despite seeing the aftermath we haven't encountered much, besides those weird Zorn from earlier. And they pretty much just hopped out of the ground, Jack thought. Maybe they were just left there as a precaution to respond if they detected anyone approaching. They showed signs of being there a long time, Nika pointed out. Hell, grass had pretty much grown over them. I reckon the Zorn that tried to ambush us on the boat were desperately fleeing the same fate, and the monsters that attacked us after that were the ones chasing them. That makes sense, Jack nodded. And even though they've picked the place clean of what they want, they're still going to need to patrol this area in case anything's changed. And it has, Nika sighed. Us. And the river giants back at the outpost, Jack added. Let's just hope they patch their boat and have enough sense to keep their distance. Yep, Nika nodded. But I'm worried they could be aware something's up since we killed their Zorn puppets. Do we even know what was up with them? Jack asked, looking to their friends that were sleeping as best they could around the lowly lit fire, with Chio levitating in deep meditation. I know Chio was concerned about them, but they just seem like normal Zorn with better tactics to me, though my knowledge kinda sucks. Yeah, there was definitely something wrong with them. The Kizan shook her head. A lot of the usual Zorn stuff was there, but it's possible something else was controlling them in some way. It's the only thing I can think of that explains how they were lying in wait for as long as they did. Chio couldn't detect their life signs, but we also know they weren't undead. So, somewhere in between life and death? Jack asked curiously, treading on unknown ground. Turning them into enough of a vegetable for them to not show up to Chio? Such a thing is possible. They heard the voice of Chio reply in their minds, while the Alithian remained in her meditative pose. Enough brain function to be puppeted, but not enough for resistance. But that would mean there's a puppeteer, Nika cautiously replied. Assuming this theory is correct, that would mean they'd likely know something is up, unless they were, pre-programmed or something. Hope for the best, assume the worst, Jack sighed. Agreed. There are many possibilities here, Chio told them. I do not know what happened to those Zorn, but there is no doubt that something did happen. We must be cautious. The hours dragged on, as Jack and Nika kept watch, noting the change of the ghostly lights in the distance. Aside from this, they spotted nothing out of the ordinary, before eventually being replaced by Scifi and Allura, with Chio maintaining her passive overwatch, while Dante dozed nearby. Now being relieved of his duty, Jack tried his best to get some rest, replacing Allura's spot close to the fire. He still felt damp from the storm earlier, and the battle skin underneath his heavy armour clung uncomfortable to his skin, as he felt the traces of liquid slosh and chafe, but he did his best to ignore it as he wiggled to get as comfortable as he could, until exhaustion finally took him, and he fell asleep. So, Scifi began, whispering to Allura as the pair of them kept watch outside the window, watching the ghostly lights flicker. What do you think could be behind what's going on? What do you mean? The Eladri whispered back. The ranger's note said that it's several types of creatures working together, and if what happened on the boat is anything to go by, they coordinate well. The Skritter reasoned. From what we saw, the Corvin outpost was taken bloodlessly with all hands missing, which is something even we'd need to plan out. I've never heard of ordinary monsters doing that. Scifi raises an excellent point, Chio agreed, from where she remained in her floating lotus position. Our enemy is smart. Are you suggesting they could be sapient? Allura asked skeptically. I think that's premature to assume. We haven't even seen any of them up close. True, they could be under the dominion of a master, Chio conceded. Yeah, one with the power and balls to oppose Blightooth, Scifi added. The local Zorn tribes were shitting themselves trying to get away, and we found 2 plague drakes knocked out of the sky. I want to know what did that, Chio added. None of the creatures we know of so far look like they could do such a thing. I'd say the likely cause of death was magical. We've seen the smaller creatures, Allura began. Chio, you mentioned spotting some stocky-looking figures when Jack unloaded into the tree line? Yes, stocky and sturdy, but that's all I saw of them. And the thing Jack found below decks, Scifi added. But something weird killed the captain. He was convulsing and bleeding like hell. That was a magical attack, Chio confirmed. I heard the spell being cast beforehand, but couldn't identify the source or the target. I'll refresh my blessings on all of you the moment everyone is awake, Allura nodded. They won't be able to pull that trick on any of us. Yeah, Scifi replied distractedly as she looked out the window. Guys, take a look. A peculiar chill ran down them as they saw a strange pale mist rising from the ground, slowly thickening and creeping towards them. It seemed to emanate from spots in the ground, swirling and coalescing in unnatural patterns. More mist, Allura noted. That can't be natural. It's the same as on the boat, Tshirt realized, as Dante quickly stirred, letting out a low growl of warning. "Tshirt, Scifi, wake the others," Allura hissed, her voice barely above a whisper. Everyone was soon awake and up, quickly sobering from groggy confusion to alarm as they looked out of the window as the mist began to lap at the walls of the cabin. "Is Reach within the ritual radius?" Tshirt warned. Suddenly, a loud, unnatural howl pierced the night, its eerie screech sending shivers down their spines. The sound was unlike anything they had ever heard, like some kind of mix of animalistic fury and something far more sinister. The howl was quickly followed by several other howls, each one echoing in the distance and amplifying their growing sense of dread. The mist, now thick and clammy, crept up the walls of the cabin and pressed against the windows, as if alive and demanding entry. Almost on the edge of his perception, Jack could hear the sounds of malevolent giggling around them, as the ghostly lights, previously moving almost at random in the distance, seemed to ever so gradually close in towards them. "Shit," Nika cursed. "What do we do?" "I need to cast some blessings," Allura warned, "but get ready for a fight." "Hold your nerves and don't fall for their tricks," Tshirt warned. Nobody said a thing as Allura kept casting. Though Jack didn't necessarily know what Allura was doing, he trusted her judgment as he felt the spiritual warmth take hold on him. They listened to the giggling and whispering coming out of the fog, but kept an eye on each other, remaining disciplined and in control, ready to spring into action. Suddenly, they heard a heavy, rapid movement rush up towards them, before halting just as quickly. Keeping his ear next to the window with his heavy plasma rifle at the ready, Jack could hear the sounds of sniffling, as if coming from a large animal, like a cow or a bear. He looked to his friends, who nodded slowly, allowing him to make the play. "Who?" The voice called out in a croaky hiss, as the whispers around them giggled in malevolent glee. "Is it alive?" the voice asked, as heavy footfalls got closer, reaching just outside the cabin as the group followed the sounds with their eyes. Jack held up a hand to signal to wait, as he reached with 2 fingers and slightly tapped once on a place on one of the walls. The heavy footsteps stopped before coming closer to investigate. Waiting in anticipation, Jack allowed the sound of the footsteps to come even closer and closer, as he heard the sound of a claw scraping across the wooden wall of the cabin. Following the sound with the barrel of his gun, Jack waited until the exact moment the sounds of movement reached the spot he lured them to, before unloading a torrent of furious plasma fire straight through the wall.